It's so good to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program today.
Same here. Thank you for having me. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. So let's begin our journey into your good work by asking you this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed so much in our world. How did you make it through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you work and live in 2025?
It's because of the pandemic that this business even started. I was just a cooking instructor at the Oregon Commission for the Blind, and I finished culinary school in June of 2019, went to work there immediately, and then in March of 2020, I was paused because they no one knew what to do about COVID. Could we be in the same room together? And I certainly wasn't comfortable with cooking remotely, teaching cooking remotely. So
Yeah.
I was paused for about a year and a half, and that is when I put all of it together for the Blind Kitchen, and that's how it came to me. And I did both for a while, and then I started dropping things. So about a year after that, I took on the Blind Kitchen full time.
So let's get to the heart and soul of your work with Blind Kitchen and figure out what you do on a daily basis. And to do that, I'm going to put you at a career day with a bunch of 12-year-olds at an elementary school. And the kid in the back of the room is like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer him?
Well, I am a chef and I'm an entrepreneur. And what I do on a daily basis is the first couple hours of my day are answering emails and inputting orders and doing any communications. I do that when I'm at my best, when I'm thinking my best. And then the second half of the day is generally I either go to the studio, we film in a professional studio, and that's where I do a lot of the cooking and the video tutorials, or I go to what we fondly called the pantry, and that's where we package and ship all of the orders for the tools we sell.
So one of the kids is undoubtedly going to say, "Why the Blind Kitchen? How did that term come about? What's the story behind it?" How would you answer him?
Mhm. Well, the Blind Kitchen is a place where people who can see very little or who are completely blind can come to learn how to cook safely in their own kitchen, even though there are sharp knives in there and hot surfaces. People want to cook, but they don't want to hurt themselves. And so the Blind Kitchen is a place where people can come, or parents of blind children. There are children that are born blind every day or with vision loss, and the parents don't know how to teach them. They don't know the skills of vision loss because they can see. And so the Blind Kitchen is a place where someone who is blind or who is teaching blind people how to cook can come and learn how to do it safely and confidently.
So I just had this vision one time years ago. This had to have been 20 years ago. I went into a Wendy's and there was a man that was in there that didn't have any arms. And I watched him grab the tray. He had a potato and a salad, I believe. He grabbed the tray with his mouth. He walked across the restaurant. He laid it down and he leaned back and he put the fork and knife in his feet and literally, like, no problem, completely ate his meal.
And good for him. And that he is the spirit of what the Blind Kitchen is. It's
Yeah.
like we can do things that other people can do. I can't drive a truck, I can't fly a plane, at least not yet. But I do things that you can do, but I just do it differently, just
Yeah.
like he did. He
Yeah.
found a way to be proud and independent and eat.
It
Good for
was
him.
amazing. Yeah, that was just
Yeah.
popped on. It really, to this day, was one of the most amazing things that I've seen. And I think for someone like him, I don't think he probably wanted any attention or would want any attention, but
No.
it's just for the way that we're used to seeing how the world works, to see that level of commitment and how he overcame, it was pretty cool.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
If you're determined enough, often you can find a way to do it.
yeah, you certainly can. So let me ask you this. When you were 12 years old, what was your dream gig? What did you want to do with your life?
I wanted to be in the Olympics. I wanted to be a gymnast. It was a
Okay.
thing. Yeah. I grew up in Indiana, so not too far from where you are at.
Yeah.
And I'm one of 12 kids, and my younger sister and I would make our own balance beams with cinder blocks, bricks, and then a ramp and stuff like that. And we would just be out in that hot sun and the humidity and the mosquitoes for hours and hours. So, yeah,
Wow.
I didn't want to cook.
So take me back in your life to the beginnings of what made you want to be an Olympian and eventually cook, and then eventually offer this facility for folks that that g- gives them that opportunity to be themselves, to flourish? How did all of these seeds get planted and become who you are?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So eventually I just phased out of the Olympic dream from being, 12 years old. And when I did college sports and high school sports, so I still stayed athletic, but I didn't want to do that. And I lost most of my vision in my early 50s. So throughout my career, I was diagnosed at 28. And throughout my career, I had taught adults and I loved teaching adults. So when I lost my vision and I was getting my blind skills like Braille and how to use my phone with a blank screen, my computer, I don't use a monitor or a mouse. It's all done with keyboard commands. So I was learning all of that. And I knew I wanted to teach, but I didn't know what I wanted to teach. And so I was in meal prep class with my meal prep instructor, and she was teaching me how to cook with vision loss because I didn't know how. I didn't know there were talking thermometers and different tools out there that could help. And so a light bulb went on in my head and it said, "Oh, I'd love to teach this. I'm having fun. I'm enjoying the interaction, hearing her story, telling mine." And then the light bulb went off, and I thought, "But you don't know how to cook. You really don't know how to cook. I know how to read recipes. I know how to read cans and boxes, but that's the way I got along for the most part." And so that's when I decided to go to culinary school. And I was the only blind student, but I knew that I wanted to teach cooking, but I also am very skills based. And and cooking's a lot. It's accessing recipes, it's shopping, it's organizing, it's labeling, it's identifying. It's way more than standing in front of a stove or an oven. And so I figured the best place to learn a organized way to teach it would be to learn it myself from somebody else that has developed a curriculum to teach cooking. And that's why I ended up in culinary school. I really didn't want to own a restaurant or anything. I just wanted to be a better teacher. And so and I fell in love with cooking in culinary school. The art, the history, the culture, the camaraderie, all of it. And I would knew I was in the right place. And even though it was really hard, it felt good and it felt right. And so that's how I went from Olympic dreams to teaching cooking.
What was the first thing that you made and got a reaction from somebody and thought, I can do this?
It was eggs week, and we had to make a omelet. And a French omelet just is very heavy in fat, and you can't have any brown on it. It's very creamy, but it's rolled up like a bug in a rug. You put your ingredients in it when it gets to a certain stage, and I can tell that because when I'm touching an egg, if it's not cooked, my finger's going to come back wet. If it's cooked enough to eat, nothing's going to come back. It's going to feel tacky or it's going to be hard. And I didn't want it to be hard, but I can tell. So that's I can tell when the egg is done and then you sprinkle your cheese in, your herbs, whatever, and then you roll it. Well, I used a piece of parchment paper underneath in the pan, butter on it, all that, and a little bit of the parchment paper was coming up. It was round above the rim of the pan, and when I put the batter on, once I just put it right over the parchment paper in the pan. I was able to touch it, find out it was done, and now I had a piece of that paper I could pick up. So now the egg was lifted off the heat of the pan, and I was able to roll it and then it very easily slides off the plate onto a plate. And the chefs were like, "This is the best omelet anyone made today." And so that
Wow.
was a really good moment. Yeah.
So what do you really like to make? If you had your druthers and you could get in the kitchen and make anything, what do you love to make?
I love to make like pan sauce, like sauces. So I like to fry up a protein like chicken or beef or I did shrimp and celery last night. But where I get a base in the pan and then I can use a roux or just or a thickener of some type. And then I just focused usually on one spice. Last night it was ginger. That is what I wanted it to. I used a few others, but that was the main uh personality of that dish. But sometimes I'll be very heavy on oregano. Sometimes I'll be very heavy on basil. But I'm not one to mix too much of it up because I want something to be the star of the show.
So let me ask you this. Who's been that hero for you? Who's been that inspiration for you?
Um, I would have to say my dear friend Shar. She was my cooking instructor. And we differ in so many ways it would seem impossible for us to have the friendship that we have. And but I learned so much from her. I mean, I had a strong work ethic, but she definitely has a very strong work ethic, and her belief in her students and her attitude towards blindness. She was diagnosed at 8. I was at 28. So we had very different lives growing up. If you're diagnosed as a child, you have a whole different path than someone who was not diagnosed until adulthood. And so she just has this empathy, this positive outlook on life that sometimes when I'm getting negative or feeling like, why am I doing all this? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody gets there sometimes. I just think about what would Char do? And Char would not complain. I'll tell you that. She would not complain. So that's the person. And I don't think we would have bonded over anything but cooking because our everything else doesn't make sense that we are as close as we are.
So if you could meet one chef, whether it's celebrity or otherwise, spend some time with them, maybe learn from them, have them taste some of your food, who would you love to spend some time with?
Now, I can't think of his name, but he goes into war-torn countries. I want to say Andre is his name.
Okay.
And he actually takes his cooking and people with him and feeds people, refugees and stuff like that in different countries. And I've
Wow.
seen him interviewed. He's an amazing human being. And I can't believe I can't think of his name, but people would know, I think he's Spanish. And so he has a bit of an accent, which is delightful. But I would absolutely love to just follow him around and learn from him. All of those things, not only the cooking that I'm guessing he's a James Beard Award winner. I'm not sure that, but he's definitely a famous chef.
Yeah.
But also his compassion for other people and his willingness to put his life at risk to be able to feed people and provide them nourishment. It's amazing to me.
So what gets you up every day to do this work? What motivates you to not only do this work, but to take care of your soul and evolve in your craft?
I get emails from people who tell me uh, how much finding the blind kitchen on the internet has changed their lives. And a lot of times it's people that have age-related vision loss that were cooks for their families for years and years and now macular degeneration or glaucoma takes away a lot of their vision. So they most of them can still see a bit, but they can't read recipes anymore and they're afraid of the knives and they're afraid of the heat, which you should be afraid of it. It can hurt you, but you just have to learn how to manage it. And so they send emails or talk to me on the phone and say, I thought my days in the kitchen were over and I thought I lost a part of myself. But I found it. I reclaimed it. I get to be that cook in the kitchen again. And again, you just have to do it differently, but you can still do it.
So if you were to have a dream tonight and ran into that younger version of you with hopes of being an Olympian, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained, what advice would you give?
I would tell myself to have more confidence in myself. So one of the things with this eye disease is you have decreased peripheral vision and decreased night vision. And I'm also very tall. I'm 5'11", so I was always tall for my age. And I was clumsy. But the truth was I wasn't clumsy. I couldn't see. But none of us knew it because I would bump into walls, bump into trees at night. We'd be chasing fireflies and playing tag and I'd run into trees and trip and fall. So she was not very confident. If I could go back and say, this is going to be okay, you're going to grow into yourself and you're going to find ways that you can cope in the world without bumping into things. I think that's what I would give her.
So let's say you walk into a room of everybody that knows you in a professional sense, from your kitchen, from all these years of being a professional, and you could tell that group of people a fun story about you that would humanize you. Maybe a great trip you went on, maybe a concert you went to, just something fun, an adventure you were on. What would be a fun story you could tell that room?
Oh boy, I've done a lot of traveling and stuff. I do have a fun story that comes to mind, and now I'll tell you that one. When I was in culinary school, it was during Eggs Week, and I had a sighted guide for the first couple of weeks so that she could help me find things in the kitchen. It wasn't a good use of the chef's time to help me learn the geography of this huge commercial kitchen. I think there were 7 rooms, and so she would tell me what was going on, and the chef that was teaching was flipping an egg, but he wasn't using a spatula. He was doing that where you flip it up, dip the pan forward, flip it up in the air, it does a 180 and comes back down the pan. So I thought I had to do that. And so when I came home, I made a piece of toast at the advice of a friend who was a very good fast food cook, said, start with toast and then you won't have such a mess. So I was flipping the toast and I was getting it right about half the time. So then I got eggs and I had a work tray by the counter, which is just like a cafeteria tray, but I work on them all the time. And it was right next to the stovetop. And so I would crack an egg, put it in the pan, and then when it was time to flip it, I would move the pan over the work tray and then flip. And if it fell down, then it fell into a contained area. And so I was still getting it right about half the time the day of the test. So when the test came, I decided to get it out of the way first. And I said, Chef, I'm ready, because I thought they'd have to watch us do that. We can't just say we did it. And he said, what? And I was like, oh, I'm ready to flip the egg. And he figured out what was going on. He said, everybody come over here. We're going to watch Deborah flip her egg. I was like, praying to the egg gods, please help
Yeah.
make this come back down in the pan and don't break the yolk. And it worked. And I felt like I just won a gold medal. People were
Wow.
clapping and cheering. It was just like I didn't have to do it that way, but I didn't know it. So that was kind of a fun memory.
That's cool. So, of everything that you've accomplished and you've evolved to, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Hmm. I would have to say it's probably, well, being I'm a good mother for sure, and I'm a good wife to my husband. Second time around, I was much better of a wife. But I would have to say it would probably be my attitude. Um, but I learned that from my mother, and I learned that from Shar, my friend, and other people around me that had been dealt difficult cards, but had, like your guy in Wendy's, but had risen above the sadness, the despair, the grief, all that is part of it. I'm not going to pretend I didn't go through that, but I would have to say it's my ability to remain positive in spite of being dealt these unexpected cards.
So, at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that you work with, everyone that knows you in different capacities, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm fun to be around. I'm well read. I enjoy having interesting conversations with people, even people that have different attitudes or opinions than I do. I want to hear how did they get there? What so I think I'm a interesting conversationalist and positive and fun to be around. I guess that's what I'd have to say.
I love it. So, if anyone wants to reach out, they want to learn more about the Blind Kitchen, any of the good business, where do they go?
They go to theblindkitchen.com and it's very blind friendly, screen reader friendly, magnifying software friendly. Or they can write to me at info@theblindkitchen.com.
Okay, excellent. This has been absolutely wonderful, Deborah. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your courage and time. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful.
Thank you. This has been a great conversation. I could talk with you all day.
Yeah, absolutely. We should do a part two. This has been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we're out.